Well, I mean, there is a gender gap. There's no question about it. In other words, the Republican Party has been more successful at attracting white male votes than they have at attracting white female votes around these appeals. There's no question about that. But there are a significant number of women who have bought this worldview as well. So it's unfair to say it's just men and women. But there is a significant gender gap, and there has been, in most national elections since 1980, a significant gender gap. And I think it's really important to look at that. But when people look at that, typically, over the last 20-something years, they've looked at the women's side of the gender gap, which is to say why women are supporting Democratic candidates more, what are the concerns that women bring to the political discourse and to their voting choices, which is an important discussion, to say the least. But what's been much less studied, which is incredible, but it's much less studied, is how men's gendered identities and lives have shaped how we think politically and how we vote and what our voting choices are. And that's because I think part of the confusion here is that when people hear the word gender, they think it means women. And so gender in politics to a lot of people means women in politics. And what gets missing is the dominant group, which is, what gets missed is the dominant group, which is, of course, men. And so I think it's really important to look at the men's side of the gender gap. How are men responding based on our gendered identities rather than just looking at how women do so? A lot of men have this attitude that we know what's better for women than they know, because we understand men better than they do. I think in other words, some men believe that it's nice to talk about healthcare and employment and education and all kinds of other childcare issues. Those are interesting and important, but not really as important as our physical safety in terms of being defended against the terrorists. And we men who understand these terrorists' intent, and a lot of the women just don't get it. And I think we need to privilege our understanding of the dangers of the world because we know men better than they do. I think that's part of it. It's a very patronizing, patriarchal attitude. Again, there is something to be said for needing to be defended against violent assault. I mean, I would never in a million years argue that we don't have to defend ourselves against violence. That's absurd, and I would never stand for any political program that didn't respond aggressively to threats to literally the safety and security of civilians and innocent people, whether in the United States or all around the world. But that's not the argument that thoughtful critics of Bush make, that we need to be just laid back and just be vulnerable. But that's the way it's constructed. The way it's constructed in the popular discourse is that you have two alternatives. One is to aggressively go after these people, these men, these bad men, these violent men, or lay back and let them just wreak havoc on us and kill us with impunity. And I think when people are faced with that choice, of course they're going to say, let's defend ourselves. But that's a false set of choices. So I think what needs to happen is we need to have a more thoughtful national discourse about the alternatives to the neocons' worldview, the alternatives to the Bush administration's response to terrorism. And the Democratic Party so far has been ineffectual at trying to do this on a national level, at trying to articulate a point of view that people can grasp that would be successfully arguing against the current policy of the current administration.